Hello, and welcome to the Catalyst Creator Show. I'm your host, Dave Yeager. Hey, I created this show for those that are interested in personal transformation, growth, and expansion in all areas of their lives. This show is created based on my own curiosity of asking questions and finding those that are the top professionals in their field, whether it be spirituality, professionally, personally, health and wellness, nutrition, and everything in between. My role is to find those that are the best and the world class in their respective fields, to interview them, ask them questions, find out what makes them the best in their area, and bring those words of information and wisdom to you so that you may apply them to your life and see measurable results. Hey, join with me on this insightful journey of self-discovery and inspiring messages. My question to you is, will you be the next catalyst for change in our world? Welcome to the Catalyst Creators Podcast Show. I'm your host, Dave Yeager. Today, I have a very special guest for us. Her name is Maria Aparis. She is a #1 best-selling author and wellness and lifestyle coach. She specializes in holistic and alternative modalities and natural plant remedies. Maria is an inspirational and motivational leader. She inspires others to achieve their greatest potential in life by challenging the paradigms that hold them back while realigning them with the mind, body, and spirit. Her book can also be found on Amazon, which I'll select links to it in the show notes. But the book is called The Essential Gut Awakening: Mastering Hashimoto's and Other Autoimmune Diseases. I feel like this is going to be an interesting conversation because so many people are struggling with some kind of gut disorder, autoimmune disease, from various different things. And I feel like this is going to be a very interesting talk. And I believe Maria is going to be shedding some light on some very important tidbits for us as we go along. This theme of season 1 is really about character. And a couple of the things, it may be a little bit off topic, but I feel like character plays into so many aspects of our lives and our businesses. And as I go through and we are interviewing guests for the show, I really just would like to ask them some of the aspects that what character means for them and how they've applied it to their lives. So the topic under the theme of character for this episode is forgiveness versus bitterness. And I feel like that's also an important aspect in all of our lives to better ourselves in the way of, either forgiving ourselves, having compassion, forgiving others for various things that happen in life, because life happens to all of us. So anyways, without further ado, Maria Aparis, I welcome you to the show.
Hi, Dave. Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks so much for being here. Again, I appreciate your time, and I feel like the listeners are going to learn a lot, as well as myself, from our dialogue today. So I'm excited to speak with you.
Me too. I'm excited. We're going to have some fun.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. So the audience has somewhat of a background on yourself. Can you share a little bit about what you do for work and kind of maybe how you got started kind of going down this journey of really health and wellness and all the various forms that it entails?
Sure. Well, I started out almost 20 years ago with a spa company, and I developed it out of an RV, basically. So what happened yes, it was super cool. This is before taco trucks became taco trucks, so this was long before that. And I had an idea that people could get spa services, like really upscale, good quality spa services, while they were on set working on a TV show or a movie. And so how they're always doing craft services and the wardrobes and all of that stuff are in movie trailers. And so I was like, well, how can I do this so that I have a portable spa, basically? And so I took an RV and I gutted it and I customized it into a 36-foot day spa.
Wow.
And I I got contracts with Warner, Universal, Paramount, Sony, and all the studios here in Los Angeles. And we would drive up to the studios, and the directors, producers, talent, people in the cast and crew would all get their manicures, pedicures, massages, spray tans, waxing, you name it. It was like this huge endeavor that was going on in this trailer, right? And so I branched out and got another one. And so I had two of them going, and we were just so busy. I mean, you named the show, and we had somebody there
Wow.
on set. So it started with that, and I wasn't really into the health and wellness field back then. What I decided to do was, when I was working on my business plan, I went to massage school at night because I wanted to make sure that I knew what it was like to ask my employees to do, right? So I didn't want them to stand on their feet all day without me knowing what that was like, and to do all that stuff. And so if somebody called in sick, what was I going to do? I didn't want to be struggling in my own business.
Right.
So I wanted to know every aspect of what it was, as much as I possibly could. And what happened in that is I actually started to enjoy the body work and the healing aspect. And I got super trained in every single modality that you can possibly imagine. I spent hours upon hours upon hours, Kundalini yoga teacher training, Reiki healing, stones, crystals and gemstones. The first stones with the hot stones, then the crystals and gemstones. So it just went on and on and on. And then I got into essential oils, and then hemp, and CBD, and the components of how that works in our endocannabinoid system. So all of this accumulated over the course of these past 20 years. And interestingly enough, the catalyst of what I do now is because I myself got sick. I became the patient. Exactly. And I remember there was a time when clients would come to me and they weren't feeling well, and I could not relate to that. I was, in my mid 30s, and I was like, oh, you're going to be fine. That type of thing, not really relating to what they were going through. And that's why I'm so grateful for the journey that I've had, because from the healing aspect to being the patient, and then becoming back to the grassroots of being that healer again, has given me a profound ability to be able to tap in and meet people where they're at, versus come and meet me at where I'm at, which I feel so many coaches and lifestyle and trainers and doctors do. And, they just expect, if a person's super sick, hey, you know what, the minimum you need to do is walk for 30 minutes. Well, sometimes you can't. And so it's really great for me. And I'm, again, so grateful for the fact that I if somebody says that to me, I can say, okay, awesome. Let's start with some breathing exercises, some gentle stretches, and let's see what we can do from there and add on. And it's really a much more gentle approach, and it's actually been hugely successful with my clients.
Wow, that's such an interesting journey, how you've really come full circle in a lot of ways. And you're really bringing your authenticity to the fact that, hey, I've struggled personally with these symptoms of this disease, and it's really given you a whole new understanding and a relationship. And you're right, there are so many practitioners out there that don't have that firsthand experience that really, sets you apart in the way of like, hey, I have empathy for you because I understand.
I do feel that that's a sense of what's kind of lacking right now. And I think although I do feel that there is a shift happening. A lot more people are becoming empowered with their own health and wellness versus just listening to some person that they barely know, giving them advice, right? Take this, take that. If you have a diagnosis, then that's your diagnosis for the rest of your life, is, I feel, developing a new trend in terms of, if you hear that you have an illness, you've been diagnosed with something, more and more people are reaching out to alternative modalities that don't have to go down the mainstream of pharmaceuticals. And when you hear all of these crazy side effects of what they can do, a lot of times people are opting for more natural solutions. And I'm all for that. And let me be clear, if somebody needs a medication or a pharmaceutical to get them through something, by all means, take it. But does it have to be the end all for the rest of your life? Probably not. I don't know. Every person is different. Every situation is different. Every body is different. But if there's a way to get well in a natural way, wouldn't that be a better option or a different option? So that's my playing field. That's where my wheelhouse is. How can we get into breath work and yoga and gemstones and crystals and sound vibrations and frequencies and positive affirmations? How can we change your lifestyle so that you're eating the right foods and nurturing your gut from the inside out, and aligning everything, mind, body, and spirit? Because it seems like for most of my clients, you can't have one without the other. So you can't have the physical body working well, but then still have those harboring feelings of resentment and bitterness and those feelings of needing to forgive. And that's why when you described the theme, I really like that, because when you consider what's in our gut, right, just for a second, the stomach juices is called bile, and it's produced by it's bitter, right? You have bitters, and bitter is also a feeling. So it's something that we ingest to produce stomach juices to help with our digestion, but it's also an emotion, bitter. And bitterness, resentment, anger, fear all stems from the fundamental source of hurt. And so if we can get to the core of that hurt and lighten the load of what that feels like to carry that burden of hurt, and to actually step into that realm of forgiveness, then we can let go of a lot of the energy in our body that has been stagnant and has held on to that. And so that's why mind, body, and spirit, it's not a one size fits all for everybody. And I just love what I do.
I love it. I can really sense the passion and the deep understanding. It's you bring up such an amazing point with the whole aspect of mind, body, spirit, and the connection with the body and the gut and all those different systems and components, because this is something I've done a lot of research in over the last couple of years. And coaching my own clients, of like helping them through different challenges in their lives, it's really difficult to connect with your higher self, your spirituality, your own personal journey and growth, if you feel sick and you're unable to maintain that healthy feeling. And it's really interesting when you go back to the very core. I mean, it's body wisdom, right? It's the fact that if you give your body the right nutrition, the right foods, the anti-inflammatory foods, getting good sleep, all those factors work, you know, with within each other's system, right? So that you do feel empowered to take on the day, and then also start to integrate your life on a higher level with your spirit. So that's really an interesting interesting way that you've kind of come about.
I feel that in the sickest times, when I felt the most ill and had my hair falling out, a tumor the size of a golf ball in my throat, vertigo on a daily basis, anemia so bad that I could barely put a sentence together.
Wow.
Um, this was all because I started with the attitude of gratitude. And I know that probably seems like, oh, it's so overused and all of that. But when it's all you have, it's a great place to start. And so those days where, the bankroll was coming in and I was super busy doing all these red carpet events and meeting all these wonderful high profile celebrities and all that stuff. And so that coming to a screeching halt, it got really depressing really fast because you're
Mm.
like, where did my life go? I'm in bed now. I have a tumor. What's going on? And the only thing that I could grasp onto was, what am I most grateful for? And I just started there. And that really led to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And and as poorly as my body felt physically, my soul was coming back to life
Mm.
because I kept nurturing my soul and saying, this is not my story. This is not how my story ends. This is just a blip. This is a chapter. And this is going to get so much better. And it's going to get not even so much better, but even greater than I expected or anticipated because I get to keep creating it and writing it myself. And so the outcome is still happening.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. The element of gratitude, it's so, it may sound cliche, but it's such a powerful, powerful element because even, maybe even in a weird way to look at it, is the fact that you had this illness or this disease. And in a way, I feel personally that those things show up in our lives because it's our next step. It's almost our superpower, right? It's the thing that we are here to work through to enable ourselves to grow on a much bigger level. And then we can help the next person that may be struggling with something very much the same way. So that's wow, I love that. Gratitude is a huge thing.
Gratitude is definitely, I feel, what saved me. And I still do it to this day. Every morning I wake up and it's even on my whiteboard, it's today is the best day ever, right? Because it sets the tone of today is the best day ever.
Yeah.
Adventure awaits, and it makes me excited about the day. And the thing is that our energy is what sets the tone, right? Our mindset and our energy. And now when you go back, or when I go, I'll use myself as an example. When I went back to what started this illness to begin with, I had to really sit down and think about what happened in my life that would cause my thyroid, my throat chakra to get inflamed, right? And so what happened is, as I went back and kind of regrouped and searched, I found that as a woman, I was feeling like I was not able to speak my truth, not able to speak my true voice of my opinion, or that it didn't matter. And I began to suppress that. Now, what happens when you suppress something, right? It becomes stagnant and it becomes like it's going to explode. And that's really essentially kind of what happened in my throat. It just exploded with illness. And so when I went back and I took responsibility for my active participation in my illness, then I was able to say, oh, I created this. I can create wellness. I created this for a lesson, just like you said. I created this to learn something that's going to take me to my next level, to connect me with source, to connect me with all the cells in my body. And and to change that energy, because our cells respond to the energy, right, of our thoughts. So if I put myself in that situation where I was like, oh yeah, that didn't feel good when that situation happened, when I didn't speak up and say what I wanted to say or feel what I wanted to feel because I didn't feel validated by that, I was like, whoa, I just got my super cape, back on, because I was like, I let that go. It's not like somebody took that away from me, because nobody can control your thoughts except for you. I was responsible for my illness. And once I took that responsibility and really stepped into that, then I was able to move forward and say, okay, evaluation, got it. I'm not going to make that mistake again. I really want to level up and upshift and really create this new incredible story and take a new journey.
Yeah, the whole idea of that particular element creating your story is so powerful. And that's such a cool way to frame it too, is like, okay, I have this, I can come through this. And the element of manifestation, I think people look at manifestation in a lot of ways. Just to talk quickly about that, is like, everyone wants to manifest money or the car or the job or the relationship, but it's our conscious reality that we're living in right now, that we're creating what we're feeling, what's happening around us, the people we're with, or anything and everything. And it's such a powerful awakening moment when you see that, oh, this thing showing up in my life and I actually manifested it. And taking that responsibility, that's such a huge point that I don't think a lot of people grasp. I don't think I really grasped it either for a long time.
It's it's a hard lesson. It's a very difficult lesson, because who wants to admit that they created their own illness? Now, in terms of children and stuff like that, we don't have that explanation, right? We don't know if it was the energy of the parents. We don't know if it was, our cells react to the environment. So we don't know what that is and why that is. And I can't speak for children and their, what happens to them, because I don't know. And so I'm not going to try to make it up, but I will
Right.
speak in terms of an adult. Typically between the ages of 0 to 7, we have that blueprint. Our core belief system is formed. And to give you an example, I'm going to give you a very quick example. Let's say my mom and I are walking, right? And we're walking in a park, and I'm 2, and she says, oh, there's a snake, right? And she is afraid of that snake. The snake scares her, so that it emotes fear. Well, my impression of a snake, even though it may be a grass snake and perfectly harmless, is going to be that snakes are something to fear.
Hmm.
Because of that's the imprint, right? So that's happening the entire time, right? And it's not a bad thing, because it could mean that snake is danger, right?
Right.
But is it always? Not, no, it doesn't. But it's her impression of that. Now think generationally how far that goes in through your ancestry. How much of that has been put down and handed down?
So true.
So how do you break that cycle? Well, you evaluate the situation. You take a nice big deep breath. You look at that snake and you're like, huh, I have nothing to fear of that snake. I'm going to let that emotion go. So you kind of have to do the work. You kind of have to go through every single thing that you're fearful of and reevaluate that. What is it that I'm fearing? Fearing is actually living in the future of something that hasn't happened yet.
Hmm.
Right? So if you're actually stepping into the present, living in this present moment, what are you really fearing? A snake that's 3 feet away from you? There's just turn the other way. If you know what I'm saying, instead of getting all those feelings of, oh my gosh, there's fear, there's a snake, right? You just see it and you're like, well, it's 3 feet away from me. All I have to do is go the other way. Let that
Right.
fear go. Or, you know what I mean? So that could take, no matter what that is, take a different path. choose a different route and see where that leads you. And breath is a big part of that. When you start to feel that fear coming into your presence, into your feelings, maybe just take a deep breath and evaluate. Is it something to fear, or is it a belief from before that doesn't serve me anymore? Can I let that go?
I think it takes a lot of willpower to actually see that, because I feel like so many of us live from a subconscious level of fear of, we don't know why. Like you were saying, like it's that energy that was put into us as a child that it's funny you mentioned a snake. I was just at the park with my dog today and there was a snake. So it's serendipitous of our conversation. But you're so right. It's those beliefs and those things that have imprinted us, and it finally takes some kind of element to force us to stop and evaluate. Well, why is that something? Is that a dogmatic belief that was put into me by someone or something? Yeah, that's so fascinating.
I mean, when you think about it physically, when your body responds to fear, it gets into that fight or flight. It pulses adrenaline. So people can be fear junkies.
Huh.
The hormones that speed and source through our bodies can make us feel good in a way, because it sparks that fight or flight, right? So if we're in that constant state of fear, physically what's going on in our bodies is a rush of hormones. And if you're constantly, it's like people who watch the drama shows, right? Or the
Yep.
news. It's such bad news, right? And then they wonder why they don't feel good. Well, you're constantly getting that influx of information it's not good. It's not fun. It's not healthy. It's not normal, right? We don't know. It's like, can you have a conversation with people and keep it positive? Evaluate that. Because if you're constantly talking about something negative, then find out what is in that you're actually feeding on. Are you feeding on that physical aspect of what happens in your body when that happens? Are you feeding into the drama of wanting to engage in something negative? Like, what is it about us that wants us to keep that fear going? And if you can tap into that, you might be able to choose a different path. And it takes practice.
Yes.
It's like going into a yoga class and getting into, let's say a perfect, not even want to use the word perfect because there's no such thing as perfect, but let's just say our ideal of downward facing dog, right? So let's just say that takes practice. You don't just walk into your first yoga class and do the perfect split or the perfect downward facing dog. It takes a lot of practice. And so what I invite everyone to do is just take inventory and start practicing. And as we practice, we get better. We get better
Yes.
at it.
That's so true. And I think it seems to be a common theme for the people that I've been interviewing for the show is that it's a process. Life is a process, right? You finally get to a point where you acknowledge something. Well, that's 50%, but now you have 50% more to go. And that's really the internalization of the things that can help you, right? It's the meditation. It's those baby steps. A baby's not going to fit into adult clothing. It's going to take many years of that growth and that development. And that's such an important thing.
It takes definite commitment. One of the things that our yogi teacher, Yogi Bhajan, used to always say was that our commitment defines our character. And that stuck with me because it's, if you really commit to something, which is really hard for us humans to do, whether it's committing to a lifestyle of eating changes, committing to a partner, committing to ourselves, we're the first to say, it's okay this one time. Oh, it's okay. I'll just have this piece of cake. It's a Sunday. or you know what I mean? Like we give ourselves outs. And what really we can invite that change is by committing to whatever it is we commit to, whether that's your daily practice of your yoga, your breathing, your mindset, your meditation, whatever that is. If you can commit to that, you'll see your character start to change because you become empowered. It's really quite defining in so many ways. I remember when I first did my first 40-day commitment of a sadhana. A sadhana is a yoga practice, right? A spiritual yoga practice. And that first 40-day, and I finished, and I was like, whoa, that was interesting, because I can remember ducking behind a curtain at a function and having to do my sadhana before midnight. And saying, this is impossible, but it wasn't impossible. That was my brain finding some kind of excuse not to do it. And so I ducked out. I went behind the curtain for like 20 minutes. I did my sadhana, and I'm telling you, it was not that was my 40th day. It was like somewhere in between, but I didn't make an excuse for myself not to do it. I gave myself every single reason to do it.
Wow. That is so, yeah, the commitment, right? It's like, this is real to me. I've got to do it. Yeah, that's one thing I've been working on in my own personal life, is the fact of making those commitments and sticking through to them. Because every time you fail to implement something you said you were going to do, you disappoint yourself, you fail yourself, and that starts to compound over time. And the more you do it, the easier it is to cheat out on things that you said you were going to do, whether that's with yourself or with other people.
Yes, and also another yogic mindset is that it takes 40 days to change a habit. So if you're going to work on anything, if it's a lifestyle change, food change, mindset, whatever that is, it takes 40 days straight before you actually start before you can change that habit. So whatever habit you were trying to break, if you get to your 28th day, your 39th day, and you stop, you're like, oh, I'm just a day away. You have to start all over. So it's 40 days nonstop. So 40 days to break a habit, 90 days, and then 120 days. And then you'll master your habit after 1,000.
That's very interesting. I read that somewhere a couple months ago, that 40-day mark. That really, I think most people look at, we'll do it for 30 days, but 40 days for some reason, that's the breaking point, or the solidification point of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yes. If you can do anything for 40 days, you might as well go to 90. It's not that far. Because if you've already gone to 40 days, you've broken the habit. Let's say you wanted to quit smoking. You've gone 40 days without a cigarette. You have come so far. So you might as well go the 90 days. And if you go the 90 days, you might as well go 120 days. Then you probably won't even think about it anymore.
Wow. What have you done personally to help yourself stay disciplined on that journey? So those 40 days, when it's probably always the worst right at the start, those first 2 weeks when you're trying to get in, what have you found to help you stay disciplined?
I do a lot of Kundalini yoga. I do a lot of what's called breath of fire or ego eradicator.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's to explain it to those who are listening, you would breathe from your diaphragm in short breaths, in through your nose and out through your nose. So it sounds like, I don't even know how this is going to sound for a broadcast, but it sounds like you're panting, but it's through your nose. So you want to make sure that that breath is coming in through your belly button, right? So, right. So when you feel that you are going to make a choice that isn't in the direction that you have it set in your mind to do, start with that breath of fire and see if you can hold that breath of fire for at least 60 seconds. Do that for 60 seconds, even if you have to sit down. Take a deep take a nice big deep inhale, and at the very end, hold that breath. So it would be like this. Hold that breath, sustain that breath. And what that does is it resets your brain. And then exhale it out.
Wow. I just did that. That feels good.
It does,
Calms
right?
your mind.
Right. So what that does, that ego eradicator takes you out of it, right? So it becomes more about what's in alignment with my whole body, mind, and spirit. And it also physically brings circulation to all of your organs, your oxygen to the brain, and it helps clean the blood. So you're basically resetting your entire system. You're realigning body, mind, and spirit by one little breath work. And 60 seconds is all it's going to take. And that big breath at the end, holding that in for as long as you can and then exhaling it out slowly, that's your key right there. And get a glass of water, walk around a little bit, and I pretty much promise you that unless you're staring at a donut and you're doing it with the donut and you're trying not to eat the donut, if you can walk away, you probably won't want it again.
Wow.
Because you've just reset everything. So that's a really good tool that I have gone to, but going years back of teacher training for Kundalini Yoga, that was no joke. That was probably one of the best, strongest, most incredible journeys I've ever done for myself. And if you ever get a chance to do it, I would say jump in with both feet, pay for the the training. It'll change your life in so many ways.
I've participated in yoga classes before, and I know I started my first one about a year and a half ago, and I've never felt so amazing. I remember I walked in, I've been doing it for like 3 months, and this wasn't Kundalini, this was just different yoga positions. But I walked into the coffee shop and I was like, I can walk. And like I can walk, but it's like something was different about my walk. Like I felt light and it felt powerful and smooth. And I was like, whoa, there is something to this whole ability to change your energy fields and get the blood moving. And it's so important because you get, there's a quote I've heard. It's like, if I grab for food, is this gonna cleanse me or is this gonna clog me? And it's like there's that aspect of food, but there's also that aspect of body movement and freeing up different energy centers, like you were mentioning the chakras.
Yes, there's 7 and well, there's many more that sit outside of our auric field, but the 7 that we always speak of is the first one sits in the sacrum, and that's associated with safety and security. And the second one is a little bit higher than that. It's in the sexual organs and has to do with reproductions and feelings of how I mostly like relationships. What's my relationship with myself? What's my relationship with other people? The third is in the stomach, the solar plexus. And that is our source of how we see ourselves and how we allow others to see us. And then we go into the heart chakra, and that's how we love. How do we love ourselves and how do we love others? And then we move into the fifth chakra, which is our throat. And that is how we communicate to ourselves and how we communicate to others. And then we move into the third eye. What do we see? What do we allow others to see? What do we see in others? How do people see us? And then our connection to source is our 7th chakra. How are we connected to source, universe, energy, God, whatever that name is for you? How is that connection? Is it a thin, tiny line, or is it a thick rope? Is it gold? Is it white? Is it light? Is it a rainbow? It can be any of those things. But sometimes it seems like when I'm working on clients, it stops at a certain point, and then I ask them, so what's your belief system? And typically it's like, oh, that's not really my thing. And so I'm like, well, yeah, I can see that because all of the energy that is stopped, it just stops right above their head. And so once I release that flow and I say, well, you don't have to necessarily connect to what you define as a God, but can you connect with an energy that's bigger than what you know? Something you can't see that is in existence that you may believe in. And they say, well, yeah, I do believe that there is an energy source that's bigger than me. And I go, great, let's start there. And so, and that's what I mean by meeting people where they're at.
Yeah.
It's like, let's start there and expand that. And once I can get them to expand that energy out and move into that field of where that energy is and where it's coming from, then that starts to flow and free up their chakras. So it's really quite, I just freaking love what I do. It's such an incredible journey getting to work with so many people in different areas of their lives and where they're at. It's so fun.
I love what you were saying about that visualization of that energy source going out from the top of your head. I did a meditation a couple of days ago, and I've heard it before, and I feel like I've done it before, though maybe I haven't. I'll just be honest with myself. Let's say I haven't. But when I did that, like the meditation was like, a cord going to the center of the earth, and this light beam translating out of the top of your head, and being able to have that flow of energy and that connectedness to the earth, being grounded, but also to source. And I came out of that meditation. I was just like, whoa, like it's amazing. It's amazing how that works. And it really does allow those energy fields to broaden and expand and to rebalance themselves.
Yes, and it's also a journey to see somebody who has that conventional thinking of there's nothing out there that exists, right, except for us right here in the physical. And to to have them go from that mindset to what I call the which we are, I believe, is that kind of hippie kind of movement of, we just, I don't know, go with the flow more than anyone. So when you have somebody who's like super conventional and you can move them and facilitate their shift into a deeper consciousness of that it's more than just us, but we're all connected and through this energy source. It's so fun to see that light bulb go off. It's so incredible to be like, to watch them experience their own connection. It's so cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's like probably more so than like you and I would do doing it, because like we have experience. Obviously, you have more experience than I, but like those that practice it and have had experienced it. But yeah, someone who is just like they're stuck, their energy is stuck, and it's whoa, like that's probably more exhilarating in so many ways to see that, because then you just shifted someone's paradigm from like 180%.
Exactly. It's so fun. And then I don't hold the space of follow me or, become my disciple, or, these crazy teachers get all up in their head. My thing is, hey, let's work together. And then you start being a lighthouse for somebody else. And you start, so that there isn't just one person that you go to for all the answers, because really what we want to do is start looking within and becoming our own resources. And the only way we do that is yes, we learn from somebody, but then we become our own master. And so it's the people that get caught up in, yep, come and see me next week, come and see me next week. And you become a part of this pattern where you're paying off their car, their second house, or whatever. Like, that's a trap that we can get into.
Mm.
So so really have a goal in mind when you're meeting with somebody who's doing your coaching and facilitating your healing. Have a goal in mind, and if you don't meet that goal within a certain amount of reasonable time, then reevaluate if that person's the right coach for you, or guide, because you should be able to work with someone for a few months and then come back for some maintenance and then be able to go off on your own and be that lighthouse for somebody else. So that's why I have a constant influx of new clients that's always coming in. That's great abundance of flow, because I don't want them to stay with me for 20 years. If you're still with me in 20 years seeking my advice, I'm not the right teacher for you. I'm not the guide for you. Yes, we'll be friends and we'll always stay connected, but at some point you've got to take over and master your own healing, master your own life, and start that creation.
That's such a valid point because I feel like you're right. Some people like finally get to the point they're saying to themselves, "Yes, I need a coach. I need someone to help me move past this." But if they never move past that aspect, it's like you meet a coach, you meet a mentor, someone who's going to be with you on this journey to help you see the bigger aspects of yourself and really help you step into your own power to know that you can change your own life. And you're so right. If we start looking to those that are above us as leadership to help us, but then we just rely on them always just kind of being a crutch, it's like, well, you're never going to get the message and you're never going to grow beyond that.
Yes, a true leader, my belief is we create more leaders. But there's always got to be a follower at some point, right? So that we can keep improving.
Sure.
So the follower is really just a student and the teacher and the student. And then the student takes over and teaches. And then so on and so on and so on. And I feel if we can keep that going, then we can reach a lot of people and just keep awakening this continue with a great awakening that's taking place.
So true. Well, the tagline for the show, Catalyst Creator Show, is will you be the next, will you be the next catalyst for change in our world? Because I feel like if you and I have this conversation and someone listens and they're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. That sparks, that's it. We need that spark. And then hopefully that'll translate into more and more things. And then that person can help more people and et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I love it because we're all part of this greater consciousness of humanity. We all are connected to the earth, to nature, to everything and everything. Sometimes that takes a lot of like sitting down and like, whoa, I really am connected to everything. So every action, every word, everything we're doing, we're sowing into the consciousness of the universe. The Akashic Records, if you're familiar with that.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of research in that, and it's just like it makes you kind of step back and you're like, whoa, maybe I should stop for a second.
No, I think you should keep on going. See where it takes you. Have those adventures, and as you expand, you get to see what else is there, and it leads you to more learning. And there's probably four books on my desk, that I'm constantly reading, learning. And I have my teachers, too. And so, and I work with them, and then I learn what they have, and then I get those tools and I pass them over to somebody else. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. And my students will become my teachers also. They'll see things from different perspectives and open up new avenues for me. So when we take our ego out of it, like I'm the teacher, I'm the master, that's so ridiculous, because somebody somewhere along the way is always going to be able to teach you something. And what a great opportunity to expand, right? It's like, yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's like, oh my gosh, let's do it. So if you can find somebody And, I do work with, long distance in terms of people living in different parts of the world. Um, if, if you want to work with me, it's something that we can do so that you can get the tools to expand your life and then do it for somebody else.
I love it. It's like empowering the people to empower more people.
Yes, and that's what we need.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, just looking around our world, I mean, there's so much pain, so much suffering, so much just excessiveness, and uh, it. You mentioned like feeding on the news, like there's so much negative talk out there, and I feel like the greater consciousness has really shifted in the last several months, even the last year more so, into delving more into spirituality, like delving more into that body wisdom, that um, something greater than us, and like what are we doing to the earth, what are we doing to ourselves, how do we change that? But it starts with you and I changing, be the change you wish to see in the world, and then grow and expand upon that, because there's always people watching and observing us, whether we know it or not. And it's, it takes a lot of personal responsibility to live true and live authentic. Obviously, you're going to fall off the bus. It's life. You're not perfect, but um, maybe it's more so setting that intention, like, okay, I know I'm going to mess up today, but my intention is to do and live the best version of myself today.
Yeah, I mean, you could even take out I know I'm going to mess up today, right? You could just set that story aside and
Yeah.
say, today is the best day ever, right? Just start out your day with, today is the best day ever. And get that in on a cellular level. Let your body experience what that is.
Mm.
Turn on some music, dance. Um, if you are feeling down, like there was a couple, it doesn't happen to me so much anymore. But when you hear some news that isn't what you expected, for example, I can't say exactly what it was because that would, out somebody for something that they did. But, somebody did something, and this person was really close friend. And I was completely shocked, by this choice of behavior. And I allow myself to feel that hurt, right? Because it's when we stifle that hurt that it manifests in our body. So what I learned by being sick was that I would no longer do that. And so if I feel like I want to be hurt, like, and that's a choice, right? It's a choice. So if I feel like I want to be hurt and experience that, then I allow myself that, and I give myself a 24-hour period of a pity party where I'm allowed to feel whatever I want to feel. And I used to take those 24 hours. And then it went down to 20, and then it went down to 12, and then it went down to 10. And now when things affect me, I, I honor it. I'm like, oh, wow, that was really painful. I didn't really expect that to happen, or I didn't feel that like that was disappointing, right? And when I allow myself to feel that and then just say, so really what I am feeling is hurt. And the reason that it hurt is because I love so much, right? When it comes down to it, like
Yeah.
when you break it down, that hurt me because I loved that person. And I wasn't expecting somebody to have that kind of behavior. So usually we'll then send that person more love and just say, okay, there it is. That's that. And let it go. And
Yeah.
that didn't just happen overnight. Like that took a lot of breath work and self realization. Where is this coming from? Defining it in terms of hurt is love ultimately, because I didn't feel loved by that person because I loved that person. It's a different story every single time, but we create it. And so if you say that it's the behavior and not the person, that takes a lot of pressure off too. right? Instead of saying that person is a blank, you could say that person is behaving like a blank. Then that takes the pressure off of that person too. You're not emoting like your story onto that.
You're not making it personal. You're making it more about right? It's the issue that the person's experiencing and their hurts. And unfortunately, those closest to us are going to get the brunt of the worst of it.
It's all our perception. It's all our perception. And we think it's always about us. We don't know what their perception is about the situation and how they handled it. Maybe they thought that they did the best thing that they could. We don't know. So when we have a tendency to shut down communication, right? When somebody hurts us, we're like, "What? I'm done. I don't want to talk about it," right? But what my partner and I have been together for about 18 years, and there is and the reason we've been together for so long is because he is completely non-judgmental in whatever I throw on the table. And I use a disclaimer because I was still getting used to using my voice, right? And so I would say something like, I have this need to express something. I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't even know how the words are going to come out. But unless I do it, my body is physically still going to take this on. So will you allow me to just spew what comes out without judging me so that we can find out together as a partnership of what this truly is? What is the pinpoint of this? Can you help me with that? And when I invited him to take part in this active conversation, it was, can you help me versus I'm spewing and I don't know why, right? Which is what we can do to our partners. But with him, I had to have that disclaimer. And so what that allowed me to do was just free fall. Like, I feel this, and this. What do you see? How does that sound? And then he would say, well, I have a different perspective of that. And I was like, oh, okay. So what was it? And so when you communicate and there's no judgment, there's no right or wrong, good or bad, because each of us are coming in with our own perspectives of a situation. So when we allowed ourselves to just chat, have a nice communication without any judgment, at the end of the day, we're like, all right, that was awesome. Let's put on some music and dance. because we were able to move past that. And so now there's such an immense amount of trust in our relationship, in every aspect of it. Like, it's incredible on how safe and secure and loved we both feel, because we know that we can say whatever we want to say, no matter how bad we think it's going to be. Right? The worst of the worst can come to the table and we'd be like, ooh, wow, that really sucks. But let's talk about it. And getting to that point took a long time. It took that practice. It took making mistakes along the way. It took, let's take a dance break party. Because sometimes we do that quite often. That's a really good tool, by the way.
I like that.
Yeah, in the heat of any kind of moment, if you can break into a dance party for 2 minutes with the dorkiest music you can find, do the robot, do whatever.
It breaks the tension.
It breaks the tension, but who can't laugh at watching your partner or somebody, you're having a conversation with your robot, so once you start laughing and you're like, oh my God, that person's human after all, but we can meet in the middle again. So then you turn off the music and you start over. You're like, okay. And it really does help. It's really finding those people who are invested in the relationship, who are willing to do that. Not only for the relationship, but for themselves, because it's deep work. It's not easy. It's not easy to be like so pissed off and angry at somebody to turn on music and act like a dork. It's not easy. Nobody wants to act like a fool. But if you can get past that and be like, okay, here I am doing the robot or doing, whatever stupid dance there is, if you can get past that, then you start laughing and you're like, this moment is such a blip in our time here.
Well,
Such a blip.
you're living so much more of an authentic, real version of yourself, and you're willing to be vulnerable. I think that's I'm sure you know Brene Brown. She talks a lot about that aspect of shaming and vulnerability, and it's when you're real and you're out there. Uh, you don't know what you're going to get back, and you're so right with your own perception of what you think is happening or what's happening in another person's mind. I mean, they could be thinking I mean, I love Brene's personal story of the lake incident. It's like, you know, her husband was like thinking one thing and she was thinking another thing. And she was just like, I'm getting mad. Like, what is going on? And when they had that discussion, it was like, oh my goodness. Like, I had no idea.
That's usually what breaks down communication. You know, it's like not taking a moment to see the other person's perception.
Hmm.
It's such a fun journey, right? It's like
It
people are
is.
so complex, and it's like a puzzle coming together, you know. And if you can look at it as a puzzle coming together versus a puzzle being disconnected, like look at us all together as being connected and becoming a part of one tribe eventually again. Like, can we do it? I believe we can.
I believe you can too. Something I want to ask you, you brought up what we've been talking about. It's about these challenges and these different aspects of people. To go along with the theme of the character aspects, you mentioned your yogi talked about that as aspect of commitment. But when someone wrongs us, especially someone close to us, that we really have that opportunity at that moment to, and I say it's an opportunity because it's a growth moment for us. Sometimes when we make a decision to change something in our lives, life presents us with that test, and it asks us, what are we committed to changing? Are we committed to trying to move past this aspect in our own mind? But you know, you mentioned being wronged by others, and everyone's been wronged. So what does forgiveness mean for you versus bitterness, and really how do you choose in that moment of that sheer intensity, that emotion that you're like, I'm pissed, I'm angry, you screwed with me, you know, f you. Yeah, how do you move, how do you take that emotion and like rechannel it? And it's like, I'm just curious.
Well, the thing is that in our society, we feel that there's a shame in having emotions, right?
Yeah.
It's okay to express your emotions. It's okay to say verbally, that is not okay with me. What you did was hurt me. What you did makes me feel angry. I feel like it's in my world, it's okay to say those kind of things, if we can get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Hmm.
When somebody has wronged me, I really ask them, can you please reevaluate the actions here? Is this really the step you're going with? Is this really the choice you're going to make, right? And if they just stay true to it, then there's nothing I can do about that. I can only send them more love. I can put up a boundary. If it's a business boundary, I can say I no longer do business with this person.
Hmm.
If it's a friend or a family boundary, I can say my time is a 15 to 20-minute window from this moment forward. You know, if it's a friend that I was spending time with, I can say my boundary is that it no longer feels good for me to be in this relationship. So peace and love to you,
Hmm.
and let it go. Obviously, family we can't really get away with, right? Or get away from, and we see them in all these places. And thankfully, I don't have that situation. But if it's family, you can do the same thing. You keep your boundaries to set your time. You know, I've got, instead of, if the holidays are coming up and you know that you're going to spend time with them, then plan activities that get you out, or you say, I have a 2-hour window where I can come by the house and say happy holidays to everybody. and extract yourself from that situation. There's no reason why you have to put yourself in that drama if it doesn't feel good,
So
right? You
true.
don't have to punish yourself. Just set up little boundaries and say, this is what works for me and this is what doesn't. And you don't even have to offer them an explanation. You can just say, I've got 2 hours, and love them in those 2 hours. And if you find that difficult, then cut it down to an hour, right? You get to set the boundaries. You're in charge of your emotions. When we're infants and toddlers, we don't have the ability to really control our emotions just yet. We're kind of getting that. But then we're taught to stifle them completely. Don't cry, right? Something hurts us. No, 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 no. Shh, don't cry. Well, but it
Wow.
hurts, right? And so
Yeah.
we get told at a young age to stifle our emotions unless they're positive, right? If you're laughing, if it's fun, and it's okay.
Well,
But the
sometimes that's
negative,
stifled too.
sometimes it can be, but typically it's the negative emotions that stifle us, and we need our shadow to know what light is. We need to know what our shadow is so we can recognize our light. So
Hmm.
there has to always be that balance between the two. And so,
Mm.
if we don't have that balance, then we're not going to know. We're just going to, have that Pollyanna attitude of, completely blissful, but not grounded, right? There's a connection to stay grounded with your sacral chakra all the way up to your crown chakra so that you're completely grounded and balanced in between.
Man, that's good words of advice. What do you what do you live like let me ask you this. What's your code that you live by? Like your value and your moral system that you've really crafted throughout your personal and your career, your professional life. I'm curious what that is for you. 'Cause-
Well, I think I treat everyone as equal. There's no one above me. There's no one below me. We're all created equal. And I, no matter who I'm speaking with, everyone holds value to me. And I respect that tremendously. And I feel that everyone is a teacher in whatever experience I get to receive from that person is a teacher. Whether it's a positive lesson or a negative lesson, it's still a lesson,
yeah.
and I find that gratitude in that. In terms of like a 10 Commandments type of thing, I don't know if I really have like a set. This is what I follow. These are my rules. But I will say that the one thing that just really sticks out to me is that we're all equal. We're all in this together. We're all a part of this great community. And if we take the time to connect with everyone, look them in the eye and have a moment, there's so much freaking amazing beauty out there.
I love that. Yeah. I was in California a couple of months ago and I was like, man, everyone's so like busy talking on the phone that they're not like communicating with each other. And it's I was laughing because, I'm from Colorado, so I'm more open and like, hey, how you doing? Uh, I really threw people for a loop and I'm like, hi, how are you? And they're like, why are you talking to me? But it's so true. It's like make that connection with people because in this world of speed and information and quote unquote connectedness, we're probably the most disconnected as a as a human body traveling through this world, and it's you just never know what another person is struggling with and the challenges they're faced with, and maybe just throwing somebody a smile could be the difference between night and day for that person.
Be the light, my friend. Always be the light.
Always be the light. All right, a couple more questions and then we're about out of time. I'm curious. If you could give your 20 or 30-year-old self a piece of advice, what would you tell yourself back then?
Ooh, that is such a good one. I would say believe in yourself. Allow
Mm,
yourself to create and live from your heart.
I love that.
It's a great question because we want to say, oh, we want some profound answer, right? But when I think about it, it's like, because there's not a whole lot that I would change except for that one thing. And that's only because and even then, I learned so much from not believing in myself, not having that self-esteem for that amount of time. So even that is hard to say, because I feel that every path that we take, that we choose, is a lesson, and there's so many valuable lessons. It's hard for me to say believe in yourself, right? Because the fact that I didn't is that I didn't have that belief in myself, that self-esteem for that period of time. It allowed me to manifest an illness. It allowed me to write a book about it. It allowed me to expand my awareness and my consciousness on so many levels. So that's really hard to say.
No, I like that. And that is a very interesting point you bring up, the fact that it's like, you sometimes think about like, oh, if I could just rewind the clock and change this or that, or give myself that advice. Um, what you just told me was the advice that you did give yourself, but now you're looking back and you're like, hey, this is what I learned. Like, this is what it taught me. Maybe at that time I made those choices, or I had those decisions, or those events happen to me in order for me to experience, and now I have that perspective on it. That's beautiful. I really like that. Okay, you mentioned at the beginning you have 4 books sitting on your desk. Which one would you recommend right now, and why?
I'm a huge fan of Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he has this book called Spontaneous Evolution.
Okay.
And he wrote it with Steve, I believe how you pronounce his name is Behrman. It's Bhaerman. And what I love about this book is, I'm about halfway through, is that it's more validation of what happens within without is what's happening without. So basically, a reflection of what's happening inside your body, mind, and spirit is what's happening in your life, right? So your body and cells react and respond to the energy that's in your environment. And so who created your environment? Did you create your environment, or is it from growing up in a certain family, a belief system? Your belief system is a direct reflection of your cells and your health and wellness, and it's all connected. And what this book is doing to my brain is so fun, that it's driving me a little bit crazy too, in a good way, because I love hearing different perspectives. I love that. It's fascinating to me, what somebody else can think of. And they're basically saying, well, I don't want to give it away. It's a great book. If you can get it, get it.
I will check it out. It sounds interesting. I like books that really challenge your mind and like, whoa, I've got to think about things like Jordan Belfort. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He like bends my mind. Like when I listen to that guy, he is just like, wow, I gotta
Yeah.
I mean, his books are just like, I gotta decompress, and it takes me like months to read a chapter. It's just like, it's so deep, but
I
that's
write in
good.
my books, like my
Yeah, I
books.
do too.
Yeah, I underline, I make notes, I bend back the pages, and I take one of these little pencils with an eraser, right? And so when I'm going to read, I actually read with the the pencil in my hand, and I am like, just as if I were studying something. And it doesn't matter what book it is. It's I'll show you. It's just like, oh, you're not going to be able to see it, but I want you to get a visual so that you can describe what this book looks like. Hold on, let me move the other
It
book.
probably looks like my books. I have different colored pens and markers and all kinds of stuff because I'm like, oh,
Yeah. So can you see that?
yes.
It's all
Oh my
written.
goodness. Yeah, you even like do the little like braces around different
Yeah.
areas. Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, I feel like my books become an imprint in my body and my I don't know, they become a part of me. And that's why I have so many books and everyone's like, what are you doing with all of these? And I'm like, I'm absorbing everything from them.
Yes,
They're living and breathing in these words and there's life in these words and I just suck them all up. I love it.
I love it. Yeah, we share a common theme there of books. I have like uh I love books. They're phenomenal.
That's fine. I love it.
I'm trying to think what I'm reading right now. It's out in the truck. It's a book that it's the mystery of the Sphinx, and I picked it up in a used bookstore. I always like going to bookstores. They always have weird things, especially around university towns, because I do a lot of traveling. Uh, it's just something that's like, okay, universe, show me a book that I need, and I go in there and I find the most interesting books. I actually got on the same trip. I got the autobiography of a yogi.
Oh,
Um,
classic. Yep.
Classic book. I've never read it, and I'm reading it. And it's
Oh my gosh. It's one
so
of my
good,
favorites.
so good.
So good.
Steve Jobs mentioned that was one of Paramount book in his early years. So good stuff.
Yeah, he's definitely an influence in everything. Like my whole mindset is a part of him and reading that book and becoming a part of um I don't know, just taking that in. I think you might like the Tibetan book of the living and the dying.
Hmm.
It's so good.
The Living and the Dying.
The Tibetan book of the living and the dying.
Okay.
If you're going to ask me the author, I'm going to say it wrong, but just Google it. You'll
Okay.
find it. It's like I can't even say it. I'll just butcher it, but yeah,
Okay.
just Google that. It's so phenomenal.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, because I'm building a library through everybody that I'm speaking with, because I'm like, oh, there's a lot of books that have influenced people in different ways, and I love that.
Okay, I've got another one for you then.
Okay.
Okay, this one I read when I was about 12. It's called The Game of Life and How to Play It by Florence Scovel Shinn.
The Game of Life and How to Play It.
Yes,
All right.
definite huge influence on my life. She also wrote The Door of Success and Your Word is Your Wand.
Hmm. That's a
Great book.
that sounds like a very good title. Your word is your wand.
Well, you have to connect with me when you've read them because I want to hear what your thoughts
Okay.
are.
Okay. I if I'm not reading a paper book, I've got a bazillion books on my Audible account. So I was like, holy cow, I've read a lot of books.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have that. I have to have the tangible item in my hand,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
right?
That's my
Like,
go-to.
and it's hard because like I do travel a lot too, and it's some of these are hardcovers, and you're just like, seriously, Maria, you're gonna pack that? And I'm like, yep, yes, I
Yes, I am. It's
am.
like I got a jacket for one of my books because I'm like, it's like a plastic heavy duty bag, so I can throw it in my backpack and it doesn't get all banged up. But yeah, I'm like, well, it just shows that I put a lot of use on that book, and now it's part of the library. I love it.
Yeah, it's so good. Well, I'm hoping that we're not boring your readers with our with
Our
book
readers, our
notes,
listeners,
our
yeah, yeah.
listeners, and yeah.
No, it's good because, like I said, it's. Uh, I just I find there's so many good books out there, and there's so many. It's all about those perspectives, and someone who's gone through the challenges and broaden their mindset, and now they see it and they put it out, and it's I love it because like Emerson. I'm learning more about Emerson, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know this guy was all into these different fields of interests, and now it kind of presents. It's like, oh, okay, I see how that influenced a lot of his works, and so good stuff.
Nice.
All right, last question, and then we got to wrap up. Tell me the one quote that's most inspiring to you and why.
Oh, there's so many. Um,
You've said a couple good ones so far.
well, okay. Well, I'll go to the Book of the Living and the Dying, the Tibetan Book of the Living and the Dying. Um, gosh, I hope I get this right. So it says, if you want to look at your current situation, look at your past, evaluate your past. If you want to know what your future is, look to your now. And I think I'm butchering that, but it's something along the lines of that.
Hmm.
And what really strikes me about that is it's being able to live in the present moment, because worrying is something that hasn't happened. So that's living in the future, and holding on to different emotions and is living in the past. So living in this present moment, how can I make that work and create a new story for me? So I feel like that has impacted my life the most, because if I didn't like the past and I want to change it, I have to do it now. And I love that people make vision boards and stuff like that, but it's really generating a feeling for me,
Hmm.
versus a vision. It's like, if it's like looking at those things on your vision board are great, but how does it make you feel? And that's the space that we want to live in, because that's the space we create in, right? So envisioning in something is to get you started. That's a
Hmm.
student level. To me, the mastery is feeling in that vision. How does it make you feel? Like, say you what's your vision? Like, what's something that you've always wanted?
A Tesla P100D.
Okay. So if you were looking at that Tesla and you're just visualizing it, that's one thing, right? So
Right.
visualize that Tesla, get that in your head, get it in your mind, see it. Okay. Now, feel what it's like to be walking up to that door and holding that key in your hand and knowing that that key opens the lock to your Tesla, and you get to get into it and feel that. What does that feel like?
Feels awesome. I've driven one. I've test driven it, so I know what it feels like, and you're making me relive that.
Okay, so when you're living in that space, that's your creation space. That feeling
Mm.
space is when you're creating. That giddiness, that excitement, that, ooh, I need to adjust the seat so I can see out of the rear view mirror. I need to adjust the side view mirrors. It smells like a new car without the chemicals, right? Right? So
Yes.
all of this comes into play. This is you creating. That's the energy that you want to be in. And that's what I get from that quote.
Wow, that is so powerful. Uh, I know Tony Robbins talks a lot about that too. Is like that visualization that it, because that's when you're planting those deeper thoughts, and that, yeah, it's one thing to look at the vision board, because I do agree. I think that's good to look at it, but when you experience it on an emotional level, and you're closing your eyes and you're seeing it, and you're thinking about it, and you can smell it. It's incorporating all the sensory aspects, and it makes it real. And so it's like, do I really need that thing, or can I just live in that moment of realness in my own mind? I mean, you're
Hmm.
creating it, right?
Good question.
Yeah.
Very good question.
I mean, you mentioned dimensions. We're in one dimension of physical plane, but there's also many other dimensions too. So
Sounds like another topic for another podcast.
it does. I love it. Maria, you've been fantastic. I've so enjoyed our conversation. Um, I'll put links to all your information, your book, and where people can find out more about you. But anything to share before we end?
I am so grateful to meet you and to have this conversation. And I hope that we can stay connected, because I love your energy. I love that you're doing this podcast and giving people different perspectives. And so I honor that in you. And for everyone who's listening, podcasting is and it could be a challenge. And so support your podcast host and spread the news, and really connect with everyone, look them in the eye, and tell them how great this podcast is and how great this host is, because Dave is doing something that is a challenge to get started in, and that I know very well about, and I give you the biggest kudos for that. And
Well, thank
and
you.
and I
It
hope
is a
that you
challenge. I'm
right.
learning.
Yeah, but see that there you go. Someday you're going to teach me. So I love it. And thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. And please stay connected. And for everyone out there who would like to dig into some of their challenges that they're having and want to create new stories and have a facilitator to help with that, I would love to meet you, and I'd love to be your friend. So let's do it.
I love it. Hey, thank you so much. And again, I appreciate your time. This has been a fabulous conversation, and definitely we'll connect, stay connected, and share books and all that good stuff. So, well, thank
Okay.
you again, and you have a good rest of your day. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye. Thank you again for being a listener and supporter of the Catalyst Creator Show. Hey, if you found value, please like, share, and comment below. Your valuable feedback and requests to hear from future guests would be appreciated. One last thing before I let you go, consider becoming a supporter of the show. I don't like ads, as I feel it subtracts from the quality of the show's content. You can find out more about becoming a supporter by following the links in the show notes. Again, thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Take care.